Hey guys, thanks for coming back for another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. Just wanted to give you a heads up for this episode. There is some sensitive content, so please practice some discretion on whoever may be listening or watching while you are enjoying this episode. As with everything with God, He uses every part of our story for redemption. So let's dive in and hear Louis's story.
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9 to 5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm Denise Acosta.
And I'm Brooke Ackerman.
Yay! And we have a special guest today, Louis Dooley.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
We are so grateful that you're here today. For those who may not know who Louis Dooley is, he is the author of a book called Prison Saved My Life, which I have a copy of and have read, by the way.
Me too.
So I mentioned before in other episodes how I'm in jail ministry, and I've talked about different interactions with my mentees, and I have actually had some of my mentees read this book. There's a lot of great content in here, and just your story above all is just incredible. It's amazing. Yeah, what a story. So we are going to dive in some of that with Louis today and follow up on, I don't know, what life is like since then, because this book came out when? 2000.
Like 15 or 16? I don't know. I got to look inside the cover of it to see the
Yeah.
cover. The date,
And
I
that
don't
was,
remember.
did it come out right away? Like, did you write it and it was published right away? Because that usually takes time, right?
He pretty much wrote it and came out right away.
Oh, wow. All
Yeah,
right.
I had a great co-author who there wasn't too much editing that needed to be done, and boom, it was just lickety split.
Nice.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, would you like to tell us a bit about Prison Saved My Life?
Yeah, well, the whole concept of writing a book really came from just many people over the years. Since I've been out of incarceration, I got out in August of 2009, and I had the opportunity to just get a chance to speak at different churches and different events. And there would always seem to be somebody that would say, "Man, you should write a book." And I'd be like, "Man, I understand. I'm not really a writer." And then years went by, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7, 8 years. And finally, I was like, "Man, Lord, maybe you telling me to write a book through people." And so I tried to do it myself. I tried to hunt and peck on my laptop because I can't type, and that went nowhere. Then I saw this dragon dictation program that somebody from church heard me talking about, and they bought it from me for Best Buy, where you talk into your computer and it types it for you. The only problem was, man, it couldn't really pick my accent up. I would say something like, "Man, the car was driving really fast down the street," and it would say the elephant jumped over the broom. And it was nowhere nothing like it. So I struggled through that to try to do it. Then my last ditch effort was to buy one of those little small recorders because I was driving a lot doing sales. And it's like I got plenty of drive time. So I just picked that thing up, put record, and I would just go. And then I would give it to somebody that said that they would actually type it out. And man, I talk a lot and I talk fast. And I needed a stenographer or something. I think that's that person that's in the courtrooms. I needed somebody really had to do it. And I just said, heck with that stuff, man. And then I just finally said, okay, Lord, if I'm really going to try to do this, I just need to sit down. And there was a Christian brother who was working on something. He designed websites and stuff, and he had an idea for a business. And we decided to meet at Panera every Tuesday at 8 a.m. And he would work on his thing, and I work on my book, and it's kind of like an accountability thing. And so I don't know what he did with his stuff. I don't think nothing came from it. But man, I pounded the pavement. You know what I mean? I beat it up right every day, just writing things that came to my mind. And then as I was thinking about, okay, writing this book, I'm not a writer and it's probably going to be real ghetto. And I thought, well, who can I get to help me? And my mentor to this date, who's 80 or 81, who lives in St. Louis, I met him in prison when I was 20 years old. And he used to come in and teach Bible study. His daughter used to come in and teach a creative writing class. And so I thought, man, let me talk to Heidi. She was teaching a creative writing class. Surely she could maybe help. And so I told her, she prayed about it. She said yes. And so I sent her what I had. And I was going to Missouri from Chicago once a month to go into the prisons, and I would always spend 3 or 4 hours with her, and she would either have a yellow legal notepad full of questions, and she write answers down, and then she got smart and she had a little camera she put on a tripod, and she would videotape me and then get it that way. And then we just spent about 2 years compiling all this data, and she kind of put it in the format and came up with the titles and the quotes. And so she really kind of wrote the book. And man, it turned out how it turned out, and that's how it came about.
That's awesome.
Hey, question for you. Do you still say about yourself that you're not a writer?
Absolutely. I'm not a writer.
But you
I'm
are
a
a
talker.
writer.
I'm a talker, not a writer.
You have a book, sir. You have a book.
I technically I am a writer. I am. But people have been saying, when's the next book coming out? And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh man, I gotta have content. It's been if it came out in 2015, then I got 10 years of content. But
Hmm.
man, I had a lifetime of content before then. So, who knows where the Lord leads? Maybe it will be another one. I don't know what it was a joke, really. This one couple, they used to mess with me at church and we'd eat dinner together, and they say, you should write a book. And I say, you know what, I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna call it Prison Saved My Life. I recommend it for everyone. That was just a joke. That was literally a joke years before the book. And when I got serious about it, I'm like, I'm sticking to that title.
Mhm.
And so I
Yeah.
stuck with it.
I love that. Well, can you tell us a bit how prison saved your life?
Yeah, I can. So I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois, which is not St. Louis, it's Illinois. And it's a little small town that's just poverty, crime ridden, like any urban setting in most major cities. And I grew up in the ghetto pretty much to a mother that's Sicilian and a father that's black. It was an all black community. So I grew up identifying myself as a black person, and I was around gangs and drugs and all the type of urban things that exist. And I managed to stay away from that. My mother really stressed education to me. And so she used to read a lot with me, and she bought these childcraft books. There's like a whole bunch of different ones, and we read them together. And I was pretty smart in school. I was in gifted classes, and I did spelling bees in elementary school. And I wanted to be like Perry Mason because my great grandmama used to watch that. So I wanted to wear a suit and carry a briefcase. And so by the time I got to junior high, my mother wanted me to go to a different school district to get a better education. Now I was going to an all white school where I had my first white teacher, where I had my first white classmate. And this was like the early 80s, by the way, and not in the South, not in the South. And so it was difficult, man. I got picked on a lot growing up because I don't look black. Now I'm in a white environment. I got made fun of. They didn't try to beat me up because they was white kids, but they made fun of me, kind of dissing themselves. And so I was trying to find myself and find who I was. And by the time I was 15, as I was trying to figure things out in life, my father got murdered in a drug deal gone wrong. Oh man, that rocked my world to say the least. And I adored my father, even though I got a bunch of brothers and sisters. We all got different mothers. I'm an only child by my mother, so Papa was a Rolling Stone. He used drugs. I'm sure he sold drugs. Just he was a person that wasn't a good person, and I was scared to death of him. So I didn't get into the alcohol and drugs and gangs like my friends did. But when he was gone, it was like, well, there goes the authority. So let me dive in. So I dove right into drinking, smoking weed. This was when the Jordans first was coming out, the Air Jordans and the big Dookie rope gold chains and all of that. And of course, I wanted to have that stuff because it was cool. And the only way I could get it was to steal it or sell drugs because my mama didn't have money to buy that. She was working 2 and 3 jobs just to pay the bills. And so I started selling weed. By my senior year of high school, I couldn't sell weed no more because I was smoking it all up. And I had a bright idea, like, let me stop selling weed and get a job. Not. Let me start selling crack. And so I got some crack and I never looked back.
Mm.
And that put me in a danger zone with a different crowd of people and doing a lot of dangerous things. And, all that culminated in my conviction of attempted murder and first degree armed robbery. And I was sentenced life plus 100 years. And so I was wilding out, before then. I was in drive-by shootings, being shoot at, shooting people, selling drugs, womanized. I mean, pretty much anything you would see on any urban movies like Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society. Like I was living that stuff out, and some of it was the stuff I watched and the stuff I heard that was just exciting to me. So people that say that stuff doesn't influence you, that's a lie. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to, but it definitely can, and it influenced me, and it almost cost me my life. And so I titled the book "Prison Saved My Life" because had I not gone to prison, there's no doubt I'd have been dead. It's 100% chance I'd have been dead 30 years ago if I wouldn't have went to prison.
And you were 19 when you were convicted?
Correct. I was 19 years old.
So from 15 to 19, things just took a totally different turn.
It did. It went from 0 to 100 real fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life happens, and if we're not careful to pay attention to it can just kind of take you on a ride. And that's what happened with me. It just kind of, in the blink of an eye, I became a pretty innocent kid that didn't cause anybody harm, who was fun loving and liked to have fun and kind of goofy and kind of silly, to becoming a drug addict and a guy who wouldn't take no stuff because that's what I had to become because of what I was doing.
You talk about in your book how you eventually met the Lord while you were in prison. What was your relationship like before that with him?
Man,
Was
that's a
there
good
one?
question. Yeah, no, there wasn't. My mother was raised Roman Catholic, so she went to all Catholic school. I didn't know what that meant. So years later, some of my Catholic friends have shared with me what that looks like. So now I know what my mother's life looked like with being raised in Catholicism. And so the only thing that she ever talked to me that had any kind of spirituality to it was, I remember that little prayer, now lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul will take. So that was it. And then I remember my grandfather, her father, when we would eat dinner, he would be, thank you, O Lord, for the gifts that you provide. Kind of like a standard. I've heard some other Catholic people pray
Mhm.
that prayer. So that was it, man. No church, no
Yeah.
Christian music, no Bibles, no none of that stuff. I said I was raised heathen. And so no, didn't have any spirituality, and I wasn't looking for it. I was trying to make my own life and so I could do the things I wanted to do. And I had an encounter when I went to jail. So when my crime took place, because I wasn't that good of a criminal, there was in the newspaper, right? And my name was in there and they were looking for me. So I contacted an attorney. They were, well, best thing you can do is turn yourself in because it'll look like that's most guilty people don't turn themselves in. So I'm yes. So I turned myself in and bonded out the same day. And so I was on bond about maybe 6, 7, 8 months. So when I went to trial, 3 days, day one, I went home. Day two, I went home. Day three, guilty. Later that night, when they put me in the intake and they put me in the dorm room, I had a jumpsuit and all that stuff. I went in and kind of claimed the bunk because I had been in and out of jail a handful of times before, but for minor infractions. And so I knew kind of how it went initially. So I went and claimed the bunk. I sat down and I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. But I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois, and they don't get along. Now, I never had a problem with those guys, but I was probably a minority, if you will. St. Louis cats didn't mess with people from the East Side and vice versa. And so I knew off the top, I'm in enemy territory. I wasn't in a gang. I was just a drug dealer trying to make money. And so I've got a bunk, and another guy came up to me with a jumpsuit on, and he had a box with a lid on it. He just put it in front of me and left. I'm just kind of casually looking around. I'm peeping the scene. Who seems like a threat? Is people looking at me? They tripping off me? Do I need to go bust somebody in the mouth? I'm in defense mode, survival mode. What I got to do? Because I ain't finna get nothing took from me and I ain't finna lay down. That's my whole mentality. And so this dude does this, and I'm like, man, what's in this box? So I looked inside, there's a bunch of wham whams and zuzus, snacks. There was also some socks and t-shirts. I didn't have none of that stuff. And so my first thought was, I gotta kill this dude. My answer, because of my fear,
Mhm.
was if I get into it with somebody and they beat me up, I can't live with myself. It's like we're gonna have to keep fighting until I can get a win.
Wow.
And if I beat them up, I'm scared they're gonna come back and do the same to me because that's how I am. So my answer, and I wasn't trying to be a tough guy. I'm not some killer or mass murderer, but my thought was just taking the life. That way I don't have to deal with it no more. I was 19. That was just my stupid way of thinking. And so I said I'm gonna rock him to sleep, which means I'm gonna take the bait, make him think I took it, so to speak. So I ate some of the food and stuff like that, and I saw what cell he was in, and they didn't have no doors on the cells because this was the 93 and the Bloods and Crips was off the chain in St. Louis. They didn't know what to do. So people was barricading the doors and raping folks, killing folks and doing stuff. So they just took the doors off. I found out later. So I saw what cell this dude was in, and people was rigging sheets across the threshold for privacy. So I seen what cell he was going in and out of. So I thought I'm gonna wait till later when everybody's sleeping. I'm gonna go try to choke this dude out or bash his brains against the wall. And so that night came, made my way to his cell, and then I rushed in. When I got in there, to my surprise, him and two other dudes was in there, and they had these books open. I didn't know it at the time, but they were Bibles. And so the dude looked up and asked me if I believed in God. And I just said, nah, man, I believe in evolution. And that was just something I picked up in school. It seemed like it made sense. And he handed me a little pamphlet, which I didn't know at the time was a Bible tract. And I took it and they just looked at me and didn't say nothing. So I was kind of like, this kind of awkward now, right? They, they, they don't know why I came in there. To this
Mhm.
day, they don't know why I came in there. And now I'm standing there and they ain't saying nothing else. I ain't saying nothing else. So it was just like, okay, I turned around and left. And as I walked back to my bunk, man, some of the hardest steps I ever took because I was still in fearful of my life. I didn't know what this stuff was these dudes was doing. And I still was wondering, man, is dudes gonna try to get me? Because again, I'm all by myself. I'm from a whole nother state. And I don't know nobody. And I know how jail work is all about who you connected with. And I wasn't connected with nobody, not even God. So I was truly solo dolo. And so I got back to my bunk, man, and I was just like, man, I thought very highly of myself. I thought I was smartest dude, the smoothest talking dude, the best looking dude. There wasn't nothing that you couldn't tell me because I was it. Plus it plus. And I'm thinking, man, I'm in jail. I got life in 100 years. Man, I'm dead. All this awesomeness that I got don't mean nothing because it's gone.
Mhm.
That's 100% what I was thinking, and that wrecked me. And I was like, I just want to be dead right now. How could I have made a mistake to this magnitude to where my life is? I'm 19 years old. I got a whole lot of stuff I want to do, and I threw it all away, man. I was in a dark place, man. Never had been in that place before, and I just wanted to be dead. I didn't want to hurt myself because I liked myself too much, but I didn't want to exist no more. So I I didn't try any attempts. I didn't have anything to attempt it, but I didn't. But I had this Bible track, and I opened it up when it started talking about Genesis 1 through 3 with creation, which culminated in man, talked about his greatest creation, which was Adam and Eve. Then it talked about this word sin, which for years I've been saying I never heard the word. And I believe the Lord brought it to my memory because I actually had heard the word. In my high school years, we used to drink Seagram's gin, and we called it bumpy face because the bottle was bumpy. And people used to say gin make you sin. And I would say it, but I thought it meant have fun. It's like when you drink Seagram's gin, you have a tendency to have fun unless you drink too much, then you pass out. And so I'm like, sin is fun. That's exactly what I thought. But it had the Romans road in this Bible track, which was, Romans 3:23, for all of sin, Romans 6:23, the wage of sin is death. Then it had Romans 10:9 and 10, if you confess your mouth the Lord Jesus. So had the Romans road in there, it defined what sin was. It defined some sins like murder and theft, which it kind of makes sense. If you do them things, those are bad things to do. But then it had lying. Okay, lying can be bad. This is my thinking at the time. Then it talked about disobeying your parents. And I'm like, what? That's a sin? Come on, man. So it made sense in my little ignorant mind that if this is a sin, that everybody has sinned. And it talked about the penalty being this eternal separation from God that takes place in hell. And I hadn't heard of heaven and hell. The extent of anything religious I had was this. I had been to a bunch of funerals that was in the church. I had moved to Atlanta my senior year to finish high school because I had an uncle down there and I was trying to get my life straight. And I got kicked out of the house. I barely graduated high school and I started going down the wrong path. So I came back home. But I went to church down there because my aunt and uncle went to church. So I went a few times. And my cousin, who was a year younger than me, I remember we went to youth group. And I got kicked out because I was trying to get the girls' phone numbers, man. So that was really my only, other than going to a church service, that was my only experience in a church. And they kicked me out. And then my girlfriend down there was a preacher's daughter. And I regret that. Anyway, I'm straying off the topic. So I'm reading this Bible track. I'm understanding I'm a sinner and I'm going to hell. But then it talked about a way out. And then it talked about a new life. And the way I'll be in Christ, of course, I don't want to leave that out. That's the most important part. That this man came, he was perfect. It talked about how he was perfect, why he came to die for my sins and to give me a new life. And I was like, man, there ain't nobody on the planet at that time that's more qualified and that needs a new life more than me. So I was still stuck on myself. But that was my thinking. And so it had a sinner's prayer on the back. I prayed that prayer. Then I prayed my own prayer. I went to sleep. Nothing happened. The next day, those guys came. They brought me a Bible. As a matter of fact, I still got the Bible. This was my first ever Bible that I got. It's a hardback Gideon Bible. If I could get it in focus, you'll be able to see it's the traditional little, it's the blue one, not the red one.
Yeah.
I got my original little bookmark. God's love. I remember I got in the county jail. I guess they
Yeah.
allowed it at the time. And this was my very first Bible, man. I still got it. And so
Mm.
they taught me how to pray. We fellowship. About 30 days passed. I went to prison. So all that was day one of jail. I get to prison, and that's where the real journey began. And so that's how I got introduced to Christ. One of my best qualities is my loyalty. And my loyalty has gotten me in trouble historically, but my loyalty also has carried me all these years in Christ. So I think there's great attributes we can have. There's like a superpower, right? The difference between a villain and a superhero is how they choose to use their power. And so for me, I've tried my best to point my loyalty toward Christ since 1994.
Wow.
That's awesome. So you're serving this long sentence in prison. I call it the waiting period in jail first. Was this your first longer stay? The times before, was that just kind of in and out and then
In and out
you have
three,
your
four,
court
five
date?
days. Yeah, 3, 4, 5 days, bail out. Yeah.
Okay. So same. And it wasn't until I had my what I call my longer sentence where I was in general pop, which is where it kind of flipped and I was like, you probably shouldn't be doing this anymore. We need to make a change here. So you had talked about what your faith looks like as you're going in. You have this new thing that you're trying to start implementing in your life that you're trying to believe and abide by and understand because there's still a lot to understand. And now you're in this culture where most of the mindset is not that initially. It takes a little bit to find that. And then which I'm sure you've noticed too, those that claim to be looking to find Christ but not really, right? There's a difference between knowing Christ and experiencing Christ. There's also a difference in taking your faith intentionally or
Mm-hmm.
just being passive about it. And so you're at this point where you're looking to be intentional about it and you're in a situation where not many are. Can you illustrate that a little bit more for us? What was your experience with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before I answer that, I want to say address the short stay, the long stay, and making the decision. I looked at coming to prison as a rite of passage when I was on the outside. In other words, I didn't fear coming to prison. I kind of welcomed going to prison because that would kind of add that notch in my belt for street cred I didn't have. I just didn't want that long a sentence. So that
Yeah.
was how stupid my thinking was. I'm cool with going to prison. But that's a good point you bring out is a lot of inauthenticity. What I encountered in jail was lots of people seeking God and seeming to be sincere. But then when they got to prison, the Lord was nowhere on their tongue because they was making a deal with God. God, if you get me out, God,
Mm-hmm.
if you just let me get this sentence. God is a Santa Claus. And so I experienced that. It was rare the guys that would get there that would be sincere. And as you probably know, you quickly find out how sincere someone is because you'll get quickly tested. And so for me, my first day in jail, I go kill a dude and I end up giving my life to Christ. My first day in prison, a guy, they call it a slick leg, is when a guy kind of grabs you on your upper thigh below your butt cheek. And that happened to me when I was going through this opening in a fence as two lines were going crossing each other, and I was with a guy I just met. And when it happened, I turned and looked because I'm like, man, somebody you could feel it wasn't a brush, it was a grab, a quick little. And I'm like, man, what the? And I'm like, I'm supposed to be a Christian. This is the first thing on my mind. Louis, you have pledged your allegiance to God and you need to be different. And at that point in my life, it was pretty easy for me to know what to do, believe it or not. And here's the way I judged it. If it was something Louis would do, don't do it. I wanted to go bust this dude in the mouth. I knew if I did that, that wasn't right because everything about my life was wrong. I mean, There was not one thing I can think about that was right about my life before Christ. Everybody I saw, with the exception of a few family members and friends, were targets for numerous things: money, sex, something I can steal from them. That's just how wicked and evil I became, man. And that wasn't really me, man. That wasn't really me. I became something I wasn't. But that first day, I told the dude, and he's like, "Oh, he in the unit with us. We gonna holler at him later." And I'm like, "Yeah, we gonna holler at him later." That's what I'm thinking in my head. So later on came, we went in the unit, and he pointed out what cell he was in. And so, hey, you know what? I had been a Christian about 30-ish days, which meant my sanctification was almost non-existent. So I marched up them steps and I went to his cell. I'm 5'9". I probably was about two and a quarter then. This dude was about 5'8", about 375. So he was about as wide as he was tall. Looked like Jabba the Hutt. And so I open the cell door, and right there is the sink with the mirror, and he's standing there. I hopped up on his back and put him in a chokehold. And I'm like this, and he tussling with me and trying to bash me against the wall. And I'm like, so and so, if you put your hands on me again, I'm gonna kill you. And so he like, "Oh, let me go, let me go." So finally, I'm like, I let him go. I came about the cell, went down in my cell. As soon as I got to open the door, I get grabbed and snatched into the dark cell and thrown into the back, and each cell had a Rubbermaid plastic chair. And so I just kind of fell in and sat in the chair. I couldn't even get up because I had these two dudes on me. And my first thought is my cellie done sold me out, man. And he from East St. Louis, he where I'm from, and this done sold me out. And so I'm looking at these dudes, and it's incredible because they identical twins. And I'm thinking I must have got hit in the head. I'm seeing double vision. And I'm tussling, right? And they saying, "Stop, stop." And they just hold me, right? And so I don't tussle that long because I wasn't in great shape. And I'm huffing and puffing. And one of them said, "Look, that dude up there, he the biggest booty bandit. If you don't know what that is, that's a person that be raping dudes in prison. That's the biggest booty bandit in the prison. And we just want to let you know what you done did." And the other one pulled a shank out about 16, 18 inches long, and he held it out to me. And man, I can tell you this. You ever heard the phrase when the rubber meets the road? Boy, I could taste tire in my mouth. The, the tire was on my tongue. I was like, "Lord, this done got real."
Mhm.
I never felt something so I felt things equally as real. This was real. And it seemed it might have been 20 seconds. It felt like 20 minutes as I sat there trying to figure out what do I do. And all I could think about was 1 Corinthians 10:13, the only verse I had memorized. "Therefore, there is no temptation taking you, but such is common to man. But God is faithful, and with every situation will make a way of escape." And I know people take that out of context. I might take it out of context a little bit. But what it meant for me was that whatever situation I get in, there's a choice I can make. There's a fleshly, worldly choice, or there's a godly choice. And it wasn't easy to choose, but it was easy to know the right and wrong choice. The right choice was don't take that. And I didn't. And incidentally, I was in prison with those twins 13 years, and that one that had the shank never talked to me. He couldn't stand me because he
Mm.
wanted me to go stick that dude. Both of them dudes wanted me to go stick that dude. They wouldn't stick him because they was like, it ain't they static. You know what I mean? It's not they drama, but they didn't like that these young dudes are coming here and this dude and his entourage are try to jump down on dudes. So I learned later. They took it upon themselves to say, we're gonna give dudes at least a fair chance. So we're gonna put something in his hand to give him a chance. And that's what they was doing, man. And I can understand in prison, that's a solid right there, them dudes are doing for me. That was a solid. But I chose not to take it. That one twin never liked me. Me and the other one became like this. I love them to death. And so, and these two twins incidentally were in the Islamic religion, and incidentally the other dude was in a different Islamic religion. Just that add a little bit more context to it. And so yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I do not know if I'm gonna make it. And so the Lord allowed me to go through some things quickly that were somewhat miraculous that gave me a tremendous, super duper abundant amount of faith. And I tried to take every lick of it that he gave me and put it to work the entire time.
Yeah, the thought that I kept having as I was reading your book, and you said somewhat miraculous. Oh no, they were full on miraculous moments because I can't imagine, one, how difficult it is to choose to stay faithful to Christ in prison, because the amount of danger that surrounded you every moment, that just then added to it. To choose to follow Christ, you put a target on yourself when you did that, even more so than there already was just being
I didn't know that, but yeah, I agree.
right. Yeah. And so there were so many moments that I'm like, I know it worked out because I knew we were going to interview you. I knew you were going to be on the podcast. So I know you were okay, but still, who knows what could have happened in all of these different incidents. And I found myself sometimes needing to put the book down and just breathe a little bit and go, okay, it's okay. Okay, pick it back up and see what happens. And every time, how clearly God came through for you time and time and time again.
It's crazy,
it was mind blowing. So yeah, it's not somewhat miraculous. It was full on and multiple times. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's just the bigger moments that's in the book. I mean, there's a ton. I mean, even before Christ, man, there's so many times where I just attributed to what happened to luck, or I'm just so cool and so smooth. That's why I didn't get shot or I didn't run off the road or whatever. And after I learned about Christ, I was like, that was God. And it was like, wow. Honestly, the question I've had my entire time of salvation is a why. Now I know the answer because he loves me, but it honestly is overwhelming, man. It's and also is, this may sound crazy, but burdensome. Because listen, I sin, man. And I'm not saying I'm proud of that, but I sin. But it's hard for me to, because of what God has done so much of. It's like, man, how can I turn my back on you? How can I do this? How can I not serve you? People in the Reformed part of Christianity, which I'm not, they say, man, God just had his hand on you and just moved you around and did what he wanted to do to you. And I say, hey, man, I get it. I don't disagree. I definitely have a free will and I definitely choose, but it's almost like I can't mess up. But it's not that I can't. It's that there's something in me, and it's got to be the Holy Spirit that's giving me what I need not to do some of these things. But again, I do sin. So I don't want to act like I'm some angelic being because I'm not.
So I love the language that you use when you're describing these moments. And I find that we come up with the language for it much later when we're zoomed out of the situation. We can reflect back and we see God in the details. And right in the moment, it may be a little bit more difficult. You mentioned the verse, was it 1 Corinthians 10?
13.
Where did you read that? Where did you learn that?
I got this book.
So you had been reading it. You'd spent some time reading the Bible already.
Man,
by that point.
So I went to jail in February of 1994. Couldn't tell you the date, but it was in February. I got to prison in May. My birthday's in May, so later is my birthday. I was in prison for my birthday, but it was the classification where they decide where they're going to send you long term. I was at that prison, but it was during my stay in that prison, which was about 30 days, I read this entire book. The whole thing in 30-ish days. But I probably retained 0.0000001% of it. But there was some things that I did retain, and I'm turning it in now to look to see if I actually maybe have that highlighted. It would be so dope if it was. I would guess that I probably don't. But hey, let me take a look. 1 Corinthians 10. I got stuff underlined in it. So boom, highlighted in green.
Nice.
It's underlined and highlighted. So that's where I got it from. I got it from this book right here.
I love it. I keep recommending that book to all our listeners. I advise them to maybe visit their library or download it on their Kindle, but actually read it, right? Not just listening to different sermons or podcasts or whatever, right? But actually spend your own time in it reading. We are set apart, right? And so as you're zoomed out now, you can see where God has had his hand in your life, even since before you came to Christ or had more of an understanding, because he knew what your story was going to be in the end, and which is still, the story is still happening. There's still new chapters that are going to be coming. And at that time you didn't. So I find that that's just really neat to look back and see that even though we have no idea why things are happening the way they are in our lives and whatever current situation, God had already seen that through, and he still needs you for something. So he's like, oh, nope, come back. Oh, nope, over here. You're going to go this way now. Yeah, I think that's really cool. What were those relationships like for you? Because you ended up having a pretty striking influence there in the spiritual community?
Yeah, there were some guys on death row, some guys with life without the possibility of parole that kind of discipled me and helped me understand the scriptures and helped me learn how to walk and grow into a man while I was in a maximum security prison. And yeah, I mean, I love those guys. They're my brothers. And in a lot of ways, I don't have a lot of family. These brothers and sisters I mentioned earlier, none of us grew up together, and I'm not really in touch with really any of them, one or two occasionally. I got a few cousins that I'm the one always reaching out to them. So honestly, man, I don't have no family other than my wife and my stepson. And that's pretty much, I got Christian brothers and sisters out here, but those guys in there, I grew up with them. Those
Yeah.
my brothers, man. There's a few of them that done got out that I'm in touch with that I try to see as much as I can. I live in the Chicagoland area and they're all from the St. Louis and Kansas City area. So I don't get to see them as often, but there's a bunch of them that's on the inside. And God opened the door for me about 4 years after I was out to become a volunteer for the Missouri Department of Corrections, which was crazy that they allowed me to do that. And so I can go into prison. I got electronic key cards and I can get them big skeleton keys and open doors. And it's like, and I'm in a room filled with people that I was just in prison with 4 years prior.
Mhm.
And it's like, what? Come
Yeah.
on, man. Come on, guy. You guys showing out.
Yeah.
Showing out, guy. Gotta
Yeah.
show out, man. He's showing out. So the relationships, man, were critical there. They still are near and dear to my heart now because I did life with them guys, man. We laughed together, we ate together, we prayed together, we stood in the gap for each other, interceded, we cried together, we went on visits together, we played sports together, we sailed together. Some of them in a very intimate way, like a family growing up with their parents and real siblings growing up together. That's how me and a lot of these dudes grew up. And I'm a super social guy and I'm a super duper extrovert. So I had relationships that extended far beyond the Christian community because I took what the Bible said literal. And when Jesus said in Matthew 28, go make disciples, I'm like, what does that mean? Well, what's a disciple? And how did Jesus make disciples? And it's like, well, I'm supposed to follow his example. So I did that to the best of my ability, and it took me on a roller coaster ride of life in prison where it put me in some dangerous places. I got to see God step in again and do some miraculous things. There's guys that didn't like me in prison because I was this way, because they felt the way I moved around that I was acting like nobody could touch me. And in a way I was, because the Bible says there's no weapon formed against me that shall prosper. Because if a weapon does do some harm to me, there's something that's beneficial for me in it, and that thing ain't gonna prosper, even if it takes my life to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. That wouldn't have prospered. That was a graduation. So that was my mindset when I was in
Amen.
prison. So I would walk around not with my head up high, but to be humble, but I wasn't scared and didn't go into the blind spots that you didn't go in. Or when I went to commissary, I didn't like hide my stuff under my coat because I didn't want people trying to rob me. I just did what I could do to be a Christian where I was at. And when opposition came, I just dealt with it the best I could in the godly way. And I didn't get in one fight my entire incarceration. 15 and a half years, I ain't get in one fight. Got punched a couple times and I turned the other cheek and they didn't swing again, or I would have been swinging. And even since then, something that I don't believe is in the book is one of those guys that punched me. I saw him years later when I was going into a prison that I spent 2.5 years in on my way out of minimum security. This was a guy that came in at 16 or 17 with life without parole, and they passed a law nationwide where if you was below the age of 18, you couldn't have a sentence more than life with parole. So now these guys has been in prison 20, 30, 40, 50 years under the old law. They starting to get parole and get out. And so this dude was one of them. So he had did, I don't know, 31, 32 years. And he was at this prison. He comes in the chapel and I'm there to speak. And a bunch of other people come in and I see him. Now he had came and apologized to me after punching me in the face. And we hooped again after that. It was a basketball incident. And we wasn't friends, but we were friendly. We were cordial. Wasn't no animosity. But I see him coming to chapel. This dude was a Muslim. And so he come and give me a hug. I'm like, what's up, man? I'm like, congratulations, man. You going home. And I had tears in my eyes because I'm happy this dude, after all these long, hard years, he going home. And he was like, yeah, and he was a quiet person, didn't talk loud. I got up in the front. I spoke. At the end, I did a Q&A. And at last, I was like, anybody else got anything? Because I'm going to pray. He stood up. And he's in some way, this is what he said. I knew Louis when we were in prison together before, and I had a time where I harmed him. I put my hands on him, and he didn't do anything to retaliate. And he said, because of that, now I'm in Christ. I fell out.
Wow.
I fell out, man. Just tears. I couldn't even
Yeah.
talk, man. We never know how the things that we do to serve the Lord, even the tough things, how it could be impacting people, man. That's why we got to always be on, right? There ain't a time to be off, man. There ain't. And I want time off. Trust me. I'll be wanting the time to be off. But we can't be off, man. We need to wear this robe of righteousness that we get from Jesus all day, every day, man. And that was really humbling to hear. And all I can say is praise the Lord. Because it wasn't me, man. It was the Spirit of God that helped me refrain from trying to retaliate against this dude, man. It was because the way I lived my life and what I did that impacted that guy, man. And I had no idea.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as you can already tell, we had a fabulous conversation with Louis, and it went longer than our typical podcast episode. So we've decided to break this one into 2 episodes. So be sure to tune in to hear the rest of Louis's story because it is phenomenal. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod.
For more content, please be sure to like, follow, and share.
And you can email us at prodigalpeas@gmail.com.
For more information on Misfit of Creation, you can like and follow me on just about all social medias, to include TikTok. I also have a Facebook community group that you can join. I have an Etsy shop that has a lot of downloadable tools to help strengthen your walk with Christ. There is a Patreon account if you are looking to be a monthly supporter. And I also do an online prayer call once a month. So be sure to follow that to be updated on when the next date is.
You can find more information on my mental and emotional health coaching practice at blueprintheartandmind.com, where you can also access my blog and schedule a session with me. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So Denise, what's next?
Hey DJ, spin that track.
I get it now, I need to be myself because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan, I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission, I got some fruition, you down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating, I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first, he been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee